Blackness as disability. Blackness is disability. Blackness disables. Racism disables. Positive ancestral self-identity enables, permitting us to rise uprooted. Hello, I'm Pamela E. Foster, a student of how we construct and publicly convey self-identity. I'm sharing with you today a bit about the intersection of Black oppression and Black privilege, that is, of disability and ability, in order to elaborate upon the intertwining two dimensions of social and institutional privilege in identity making. You might know that critical structural theories provide systemic intervention points for mitigating racism's negative effects. And you may see deficit explanations for racial disparities as finger pointing or victim blaming. After this presentation, you'll better understand how culture or internal privilege plays a role in institutional or external privilege intervention. An exploration of privilege and ableism is in the 2017 book, Is Everyone Really Equal? That book exposes us to external and internal dimensions of social and institutional privilege. It thereby whets the appetite for a deeper dive. As the book aims to resolve common stumbling blocks to implementing social justice education, expanding beyond the book's limitations serves our mission. I presented on a panel in November 2025 at the American Anthropological Association annual meeting. That session was titled Shadows, Addressing Our Past, Reconciling Our Present, the Present. In addition to the conference presentations and related discussion, all in the African diaspora track, our several panel members' papers are submitted for publication in an anthropology journal. Check out the Black Genealogies playlist. Video number 3 in that Black Genealogies playlist is titled Author Stories and Ancestral Ghosts, and you can see that presentation there. Building on that talk, today's chat focuses on intergenerational family privilege amid systemic oppression, as depicted in our Black family heritage books. To elaborate upon the symbiotic relationship between external and internal social and institutional privilege, I touch briefly upon ableism, Black genealogy books, and a specific Black family heritage book that marries ableism and disability. First, ableism. To explore two dimensions of social and institutional privilege, the 2017 book, Is Everyone Really Equal?, employs the example of ableism. The authors describe the external and structural dimensions of social and institutional privilege as group-based norms that favor the able-bodied, resulting in a whole set of unearned privileges for these people. And they describe the internal and attitudinal dimensions of social and institutional privilege as resting on a group-based sense of deserving some and not noticing other privileges, receiving constant messages of superiority. While the book goes far in explaining external and internal dimensions of ableism, it falls short of sophisticated or nuanced exploration of how the external and internal dimensions interact. Absent such nuances, readers could be left with the misconception that the external inevitably trumps the internal in oppression surmounting. Reframing structural oppression can both explain such oppression and render it more or less negatively impactful than it is now. One example of such reframing of oppression is offered in the Africana Studies scholar Kelly Carter Jackson's 2024 book, We Refuse. In this book, she argues that to be Black is to be a person with one or more disabilities, a person with an inevitable and perpetual limp. The limp is acquired by refusing white oppression in myriad ways. While a host of scholars marry Blackness and disability, a whole genre of books exists that reframes oppression to marry Blackness and privilege. So next, we'll talk about the Black genealogy book genre. Amid systemic oppression, Black genealogy books depict African ancestral peoples' intergenerational familial privilege. They showcase Black privilege in print. And while such showcasing is distinct in the Black genealogy book genre, it is not exclusive to this genre. More typically, across literatures of, by, for, and about Black people, it is our deficits rather than our privileges that are assessed. This practice is supported by the cultural deficit theory, which explains that minoritized groups do not achieve in society because they lack appropriate cultural values. For instance, they just don't value education, or because their culture is deficient in some other way. On the contrary, the agapic agency theory explains stories of privilege. This theory explains how 21st century African ancestor published genealogies take authors through a three-step process that leads to ancestral home, the place of positive ancestral self-identity. Extended families and the stories thereof are a conduit for ability. Positive stories about ancestral life on college campuses particularly connect African American stories to those of one of our greatest documented familial, cultural, and social values. That is, higher education. Education is a realm of our lives that has produced metric tons of records. Most have yet to be accessed by descendants for our uplifting ancestral stories. Even though Blackness is a disability across other literatures, it is an ancestral privilege in Black genealogy books. So we'll end with a look at one particular Black genealogy book as an example of ability in Blackness amid disability in body. Shadows and Sunshine, published in 1906 by Elza Suggs, conveys a heritage of intergenerational family privilege within a disability narrative. Suggs was born with osteogenesis imperfecta, a condition that causes fragile bones and stunted growth. And she was not expected to live past childhood. Her body was 2 feet high, and she lived in a wheelchair. Notwithstanding her physical limitations, Elza became an educated woman, a prominent temperance lecturer, and a server of God through her service to humanity. She found great privilege in being a woman of faith. While it often is dubbed a disability memoir or an autobiography, Shadows and Sunshine is in the outer sphere of Black genealogies. It earns this position among Black genealogies because it does the 3 things that Black genealogy books do. It presents Suggs' ancestors, including her parents, as heroes. It understands oral and printed family records through that hero lens. And it reveals Suggs as possessing a positive ancestral self-identity, connecting her own attributes to those of her forebears. In conclusion, disability and ability often conflict in literature about Black people, with some learned scholars and other revered voices understanding Blackness as a disability. Because of how Black genealogy books resolve the tension between ability and disability, ability wins. And perhaps no Black family heritage book resolves the tension between ability and disability better than Shadows and Sunshine, published by Elza Suggs in 1906.